and you can keep doing it, things that you like to learn, because that's going to be going on in this story. But you're going to pause on that because I'm going to ask you something else. Are you ready? It's about gold. 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 I'm looking at your faces and I see you. I see the people who perked up there. I said learning, typing. I said gold. And we've got some interest there. People, even people who think they're not. Just something about that word. If I were to offer you a bag of dollars or a bag of gold, think fast. Which would you want? You can type it, you can say it. Which would you want? A bag of dollars, a bag of gold? Yeah. Did anybody ask? I see some gold. I hear some gold. I can lip read some gold. We got some gold people coming. Did anybody ask how many dollars and how much gold? Gold's tricky that way. This is a story about those tricks and traps of gold. This is a story about a mountain. This is a story about a princess. This is a story about magic. And I'm going to give you guys a promise this morning because some people really need this promise. This is a story in which people behave well and kindly and take care of each other. And there isn't any real wickedness in this story. So you can settle back and get ready. And somebody asked how much of each, and somebody asked maybe both. You're not all going to be tricked and trapped by gold. It says in Tehillim, in the Jewish Psalms, that Torah, or wisdom, is more desirable than gold, even than much fine gold. And this is a story that was told by Moroccan Jews for a long time. And it has an interesting princess in it. She might have been beautiful, but I don't know. What I know is that her father, the king, was the richest king in the whole known world. He was so rich, he built extra palaces just to house his treasures. But his greatest treasure was his daughter. And the thing we know about her is not what she looked like, but that she loved to learn. And because her father was so rich, anytime she wanted to learn anything, he was able to hire the best teachers and tutors to teach her. And so she grew up learning, all these things, how to write. She studied Talmud and math, how to garden and make challah. She learned how to dance. She learned how to play instruments. Somebody said they wanted to learn about awesome animals. She learned so much about the plants and animals that when she walked outside, it was almost as if she could hear the birds talking to her and the grass growing. She learned new languages. She learned how to play the guitar. I don't know about aliens, but when she learned all that she felt she could learn about the natural world, she did want to learn about the stars. And then all her teachers said, nope, sorry. We don't know the secret to the stars, but there's one man, an old man, he lives far from here. Well, the princess could get anything she wanted, so her father sent a golden carriage, and it went through the farmlands and through the forests, up and down the hills, almost to the edge of the sea. And there the old man lived on a great cliff where he could see the most of the sky. He read in the stars that the carriage was coming, and he worried. He had lived his whole life far from kings and power, and he wanted to keep it that way. But he was told by the messengers that they weren't there for the king, but for the princess. And he knew what a great student she was. So he packed up his books and his charts, and he went back in that carriage up and down the mountains and through the forest and the farmland, all the way to the main palace. My daughter, said the king, wishes to learn the secret to the stars. And if you teach them to her, I will build you a telescope larger than any that you have, and install it at your own home. Huh. Well, the old man was impressed that the king knew just what he'd like for a reward, but he said, the secret to the stars, that's not just something you teach to anyone. I'll teach the princess on one condition. Only she may come to our lessons. And so it was that the princess learned the secrets of the stars. And she went out at night, and you can do this at home. Well, she could hear the night creatures, she could hear the crickets, and she could hear the frogs. Can you do some frogs? Woo. Oh, the owls. And the little mice. But now she was starting to be able to hear the stars, and they had a song too, and she could read them like a book. At the end of a year, the studies were done, and the tutor went back to his home on the cliffs, and there was the telescope waiting for him, just as promised. And that very night, well, the princess went out, and she went out among the crickets and the frogs and the singing of the stars. But oh, she saw in the stars that an enemy was coming, amassing at the border of her kingdom, and they were going to attack at dawn. Well, she hurried and woke her father, and her father woke his advisor, and the advisor woke the generals. And the attack was thwarted and the kingdom safe. And now the princess was appointed to be the chief advisor of her father. And the kingdom went on in wisdom and peace. Well, one night she read in the stars that there was a golden mountain not far from where she lived. She had never heard of such a thing before, and it had a secret that no one knew. Well, she asked around and she asked around, and wouldn't you know it, there was one person in that kingdom who knew the secret of the Golden Mountain. Who do you think? Oh, yeah.
The guy with the telescope?
It was the guy with the telescope. It was that same old teacher. So the golden carriage went through the farm and the forest and up and down the mountains, all the way almost to the edge of the sea. And they brought him back. My daughter wishes to learn the secrets of the Golden Mountain. I will build you an observatory for your telescope if you teach her. Oh, but the Golden Mountain, that was some dangerous stuff, messing around with gold. He had to really be convinced. The princess said, please. And he agreed on one condition, that she be his only student. That very night they went out, and the mountain turned out to be very close, but she had never seen it or even the path to it before. He said they had to wait until exactly midnight. And the mountain glowed in the dark, a faint throb of the golden side. She didn't know when midnight was, but he did. And exactly then he sang a song, like a code, each note like a key in a lock. And when he sang the last note, the mountain opened and they went inside. Even if your father was the richest king in the world, you would be impressed by this mountain. Everything in it was gold, gold bars and gold coins, but gold cups and gold plates. There was a gold tree with gold apples and a gold bird nesting in it. Everything, in every detail. The princess was dazzled, but beware, said the old man. We can only stay a half an hour, and then the mountain will close with us inside. Well, she paid good attention to her teacher, and in a half an hour they left the mountain safely, and it closed up behind them. And then the lessons began. Night after night, how to find the mountain, how to tell when it was midnight, how to sing the song and open the mountain, and most importantly of all, how to know when it had been a half hour and get out. And when the princess seemed to have learned all that she needed to learn, well, her tutor, being a good teacher, gave her a test, a good comprehensive assessment. And did she know how to do all those things? Yes, and yes, and yes. And so he said his goodbyes and he went on his way, and there was the observatory waiting for him. Well, the princess, the very next night, she went out. Ooh, ooh. Speak, 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 speak. Maybe even some barking of foxes or a little howl of the coyote, do I hear? And of course, the songs of the stars. But she didn't listen to any of that. She wanted to get to the Golden Mountain, for she had seen there a golden seashell that was so beautiful she thought she'd never sleep again if she didn't hold it in her hands. And so exactly at midnight, well, she sang the song and the mountain opened and she rushed in. Oh, her golden dress got caught on some rocks on the outside. It pulled some threads out, but no matter, she'd fix that later. Oh, deep into the caverns until she found that shell. It was exquisite. It looked just like a real conch shell with the pink insides and the brown speckles on the outside and bumpy and smooth, but all made out of gold. She put it to her ears. She almost thought she'd hear the sea. But instead she heard talking. Not talking, teaching. She found that by turning that shell just a little bit each way, she could listen in on any school, any teacher, any lecture, any drash, any class, any shiur in the whole world. Well, she was having a good time. Have you ever lost track of time when you were doing something you really enjoyed? I see some people who know what's coming. Well, she heard the rumble of the mountain and she grabbed that shell and she ran and she leaped over piles of gold and around. Oh, she ran fast. She didn't make it. The mountain closed and the princess was inside. Well, the next morning, people noticed the princess was missing and they called out and they looked for her all day. And then some busybodies from the palace thought they knew which way she had been walking and some other people. And eventually they saw a mountain they had never seen before. And it looked kind of gold. And the king knew what had happened. He listened and he could hear the faint sounds of his daughter screaming from inside. She tried to sing the song, but it doesn't work from the inside. Well, he sent that carriage right away, through and up and down and over and almost to the edge of the sea. But the people there told the messenger that the old man had died and been buried the night before. Well, no one else knew the secret of the Golden Mountain. The king did what kings do. He sent out a proclamation saying anyone who could free the princess could have a whole palace of treasure. The princess, meanwhile, got a little tired of waiting to be rescued, and she went deeper and deeper into the caverns until she found a water source and a magical garden growing fruit. And there she sat, listening with her shell. Maybe she'd figure out how to free herself, and meanwhile, the classes were good. Water, food. And so it went. Everybody gathered at that mountain to try their hand at freeing the princess, with pickaxes and hammers, with magic spells and chants. And the mountain didn't yield. Far away, but not too far away, there was a poor lad whose name was Yusuf. He lived with his mother and father. He was grown up. He was poor. They were poor. They helped each other out. And he saw the proclamation in town and he heard about the princess and he said to his parents, well, I know things and I have good luck. I always have. I'm going to go try my hand at freeing the princess. And if I do, I'll give you a palace of treasure. And if I don't, I'll bring you a story. And so off he went with 2 coins in his pocket and his lunch over his back. And he went first to the marketplace in case he found something good there. And everybody had their wares spread about them on their tables and on their blankets on the floor. But there was an old woman sitting cross-legged. She had only one thing. It was an oud. It's a stringed instrument, but her oud was broken. It had no strings. And when she smiled, her mouth was missing all its teeth. Some of the children in the village used to tease her and call her an old ood, old ood. But Yusuf picked it up and said, "Oh, grandmother, this must have been very well loved to have lost all its strings. I would buy it from you if I had money." And she said, "You have a very good eye. You can buy it from me for the 2 coins in your pocket." So he bought it. And she told him, "Now I will tell you the secret of the oud. If you string it with strings of gold, it will do magic." "Well, then I'm in luck," said Yusuf, "because I'm on my way to the Golden Mountain to try to free the princess. Surely there's gold there." So he said goodbye, went on his way, and he found the mountain, much noise and all those people. Oh, that wasn't his scene at all. He crawled under some bushes and went to sleep in the shade. When he woke, it was quiet, except for those nighttime animals. When he woke, he could see the mountain glowing and no one else around. When he woke, he saw in the moonlight something shining there by the rocks, gold thread. He took it. Remember, it was from the princess's dress that got caught when she was going in the mountain. And he strung his oud. And at exactly midnight, he began to play. And each note worked like a key in a lock, and the mountain opened. And the princess, deep inside by the stream with her magic shell, heard it rumbling, heard it creaking, ran and ran, leaped over piles of gold, and there the mountain was open, and Yusuf with his oud was standing surprised at the entrance. Well, he with his oud and she with her shell went back to much rejoicing in the palace. And Yusuf, as promised, was given a whole palace of treasure that he gave to his parents and the whole village where he lived. But he stayed at the main palace. Nobody mentioned it. Somebody said how to be a good sports player. Somebody said gardening, medical science. Nobody mentioned farming exactly. Well, the princess, that was something she didn't know and something Yusuf did. He taught her to farm, and he'd always wanted to learn to read and write. And they talked and shared and fell in love and married and became the king and queen of that land, and they ruled wisely and well. But the Golden Mountain, well, the princess never went back there again. You see, she had her seashell, and anytime she wanted to learn anything at all, she could listen to all the wisdom of the world. And she had her family, and she had her kingdom, and she had her Yusuf and music. And really, who needed gold after all that? Even much fine gold. The end.
Thank